Yeah, so I was in the same boat as you. I was the night we had the show here. We were going to have the show, so I was just buzzing down the road here to a piece of private I have. All my public I hunt is like 20 minutes or more from my house. Um, so it's not like you can't get back to the house in a jiffy or anything. But so I have just a handful of small parcels of private around my house that neighbors and people from work and stuff have let me hunt, ranging from 20 acres to 100 acres. And this piece, I actually just got it this year. Um, it's a neighbor of mine. He actually ended up stopping by this summer and offering me if I wanted to hunt. His deer hunter is no longer hunting there. He's like, if you want to go in there now, you can. It's not much there. Like if you were looking for a piece of ground to hunt, you would not look at this piece. It's a 100-acre cornfield. It's along a river, but the river isn't there's no woods on it per se. It's just a tree line like along the river bank. And then they've cut all out the trees or whatever, just corn along the river. But in the middle of the 100-acre field, there's from the river has a drainage that goes out in the middle of the field, like for when it floods. The water goes out in that drainage instead of out in the fields. It goes out in the fields too if it gets big enough, but that's what that's for. And there's like some shrub trees and horse weeds and stuff in that drainage, and deer just pile in there. And that's something that I think like a lot of people can, whenever they're looking at especially farm ground, like deer they're not always in the woods or in the big pieces that look good. Like this is just like a scrubby little junk section that you wouldn't think much of, and the deer just, I don't know, it's the only little cover for 200 yards, and they get to that little scrub real fast when they're out in that field. But I had a trail camera in there, and I checked it. I don't know, whatever, a week before before I shot that buck, and there was like 3 pretty decent bucks on there that I thought I'd probably shoot on the trail camera, and there was fresh rubs on that and some of that tree line that I was setting in. So I waited. That night I had a good wind. It was like a kind of a southwest wind, and I actually had to drive around the backside of the property to go in to have the wind right, which is out of the way. It's not very far from my house, but I actually drove all the way around the block to get to it, so I could come in from the opposite side. Because you can't, the river there, there's not a true block. You can't actually go around. You have to go all the way around to the next bridge to get around the river. So my what would be like a 3-minute drive for me turns into 10 minutes or 15 minutes, which is still not very far. But anyway, I got set up there and wasn't really seeing anything until that last hour of light, and there was a decent buck out in the field. I wasn't going to shoot it, and this is the one that I texted you was out in the field. There's a decent buck out in the field with some does, and they ended up working off just out in the middle of the field.
Oh, so it wasn't the same buck?
No, no, there was like 105, maybe 105-inch 8-pointer probably. And then a few does were out in the field, and they were way out there. They're like 150 yards from me. And like if legal light was 7:40, at like 7:30, there's a railroad track over there, and I looked over, and there was the railroad track's real thick around it and stuff, and there's bedding in that railroad track. And I looked over, and there was something bigger walking out of that railroad track, and I kind of got my binoculars up real quick, and it was the buck I shot. It was coming out of that bedding or along the railroad track. And I've noticed this on this particular piece, is like the deer seem to just like get to that little shrubby brush that I was setting in as fast as they can. Like whenever they're wanting to go somewhere, like they'll get out into that field, or at least the bucks, the mature bucks, they'll get in that field, and then they'll get to that real close to that shrubby brush stuff, and that's where they like to hang out. And obviously they're thinking probably, there's cover there, and I'm not out in the middle of this field where everybody can see me and this and that. And that's exactly what that buck did. Is he just walked right over to me from that bedding area. Yeah, essentially I was just it's hard to explain without getting a map up, but in that finger, it's all like shrubby trees and horseweeds. And then in the middle of it, there's like an opening that goes in between the horseweeds. So it filters them right through the middle of that thing. It's the only real good place that they can walk through. So I was sitting with my wind perfect for whenever they walk through that little opening to go into that real little shrubby stuff. And he walked, I shot him at like 6 yards.
Well, you had to use in a stick and string, weren't you?
Yeah.
You didn't say that.
I took my longbow. Oh yeah. Sorry. That's my biggest deer with a longbow for sure. It's not my biggest buck by any stretch, but with a longbow it is. I've shot a bunch of does and a few small bucks, but not a decent one. But it was cool. Like it was, then of course I called Maddie because they were just up the road at my house, and she brought Huck there, and he was a character and he loved every second of it. You can hear him in the video. He's going to be ate up with it one of these days. I was explaining to everybody what was going on, and how this happened, and every now and then he go, "Yep, that's right." I'm like, "Yeah, don't you, buddy?" It was funny.
Hey everybody, if you like the channel, make sure you subscribe right here. And if you like the clips, I got 2 more options for you. 2 options right here. Subscribe right here. See you guys.